Imagine for a second that you look up at the night sky, and there it is, the moon shining as always. But with one detail that changes everything. It's not just a cold, lonely rock floating in space. What if the moon were habitable? We're not talking about a futuristic lunar base with astronauts in spacesuits, but a living world with oceans, forests, and maybe even cities glowing in the darkness. Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what we're exploring today. A scenario where the moon isn't just a barren satellite, but a place as full of life as Earth. Get ready for a journey blending history, science, and a generous dose of imagination. Because we're about to discover what the world would be like if our cosmic neighbor were more than just a silvery reflection in the sky. Let's start where everything changes. In reality, the moon is a celestial body formed billions of years ago, likely from a colossal impact between Earth and a protoplanet called Theia. That collision left us with the moon as we know it, a place with no thick atmosphere, no liquid water, no conditions to sustain life as we know it. But what if that impact had been different? Imagine if, instead of creating a dry ball of rock, the collision had mixed just the right ingredients: a thick atmosphere, abundant water, and an active core generating a magnetic field to protect this new world from solar radiation. In that case, the moon wouldn't just be a gray desert. It'd be a miniature planet orbiting us, with lush continents and blue seas visible even from Earth. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it, a bright dot in the night sky that, when viewed through a telescope, reveals forests swaying in the wind and lights flickering in lunar villages. Can you feel the curiosity itching yet? Let's dive in and imagine how this change would transform everything we know. First, let's look at Earth's sky. Since ancient times, the moon has been a muse for poets, a guide for navigators, and even a deity in some cultures. But if it were habitable, our relationship with it would be completely different. It wouldn't just be a distant symbol, it'd be a destination. Picture ancient civilizations gazing at that glowing disk and realizing, with their rudimentary instruments, that there was something alive up there. Maybe the Egyptians would have seen the moon as a second realm of the gods, or the Greeks imagined it as the home of a rival civilization to Zeus. The tides would still exist, of course, because the moon's gravity wouldn't change much. But what would shift is our collective imagination. Instead of dreaming of distant constellations, our ancestors would have been obsessed with reaching that world so close, yet so mysterious. And I can't help but wonder, would the pyramids or Great Walls have been built with an eye on the sky as a first step to getting there? Now, let's fast forward a bit. By the Middle Ages, a habitable moon wouldn't just be a point of light, it'd be a certainty. With primitive telescopes, scholars of the time could have seen signs of life, maybe swirling clouds in the lunar atmosphere or reflections from its oceans. This would have changed everything in science and religion. Imagine the church debating whether moon dwellers had souls or were part of the divine plan. Meanwhile, alchemists would have been desperate to figure out how to cross space, mixing potions and sketching flying machines. And I can't stop thinking about what the explorers of the Age of Discovery would have done. Columbus sailed west seeking new lands, but what if he and his contemporaries had turned their eyes upward instead? Maybe caravels would have been replaced by wild balloon or catapult designs, anything to reach that glowing world everyone could see, but no one could touch. And here's where things get even more interesting. Let's jump to the 19th century, the era of the Industrial Revolution. If the moon were habitable, the space race wouldn't have started in the 20th century. It would have been in full swing long before. Picture steamships adapted with wings and propellers, or giant cannons inspired by Jules Verne, firing rudimentary capsules skyward. The technology of the time wouldn't have been enough for safe travel, but that wouldn't have stopped humans from trying. I can almost see the headlines. First man attempts flight to the moon survives by miracle. And the consequences? Great powers like England and France would have been competing not just for colonies on Earth, but for a piece of that new world up there. But what would be waiting for these pioneers on the moon? Let's imagine this habitable world. With gravity 6 times weaker than Earth, life there would have evolved very differently. Trees might grow to absurd heights, with thin trunks and giant leaves to capture sunlight. Animals could have massive wings or long, springy legs for leaping great distances. And if there were an intelligent civilization, maybe the Lunarians would be tall, slender beings adapted to low gravity, with large eyes to see in the dim light of a world illuminated only by Earth's reflection. I keep imagining first contact. Would they see us as invaders or curious neighbors? And the wildest part, they'd be looking back at Earth, dreaming of visiting us with their own legends about the blue planet shining in their sky. Now, let's get to the 20th century. This is where it gets epic. With a habitable moon, World War II might have taken an unexpected turn. Instead of just tanks and planes, Axis and Allied powers would have raced to dominate space. Imagine V-2 rockets not just hitting London, but being launched toward the moon to establish military bases. And after the war, the Cold War between the US and Soviet Union wouldn't just be about missiles on Earth, it'd be a battle to colonize and maybe even negotiate with the Lunarians. Apollo 11 in 1969 wouldn't just be one small step for man, but the start of a mass migration. Entire cities could spring up on the moon, with glass domes protecting humans and Lunarians living side by side. And I can't help but laugh picturing the ads. Buy your lunar plot today, breathtaking Earth views included. But here's the big twist. What if the Lunarians weren't so friendly? Suppose we arrived to find they already had an advanced civilization, with technology surpassing ours. Maybe they'd see Earth as a threat after all. We'd spend centuries launching things at them, from chunks of metal to garbled radio signals. Instead of peaceful colonization, first contact could turn into a confrontation. Picture the shock on Earth when, in 1969, instead of an American flag planted on the lunar surface, we saw a Lunarian army sending a message. Stay where you are, Earthlings. That would change everything. The space race would become an arms race, and the moon, once a symbol of peace and mystery, would become the stage for an interplanetary war. Gives you chills, doesn't it? So how does this all end? Let's imagine two paths. In the first, humans and Lunarians find a way to coexist. After years of tension, scientists from both worlds begin sharing knowledge, and the habitable moon becomes a bridge. Mixed cities emerge, with humans bouncing in low gravity and Lunarians visiting Earth to see the ocean for the first time. In the second path, war breaks out and the moon becomes a reminder that not every exploration dream ends in harmony. Maybe today, in 2025, we look up at the sky and see scars of ancient battles glowing on the lunar surface. Either way, one thing's certain. A world with a habitable moon would have changed our history, science, and even our dreams in ways we can barely imagine. And I want to know what you think. How would our lives be today if the moon were a living world beside us? Drop your ideas in the comments, because I'm dying to read what you come up with.